All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our first public workshop for the Town Center Master Plan. So we have started the process. Again, we're early in the process right now. That's why the workshop tonight primarily will be going over information about the project, some preliminary information that we have to date. There are still more steps to be done. But again, this is to look at that, give you ideas about what the project is, and then also there'll be a visioning session tonight. Again, there aren't any plans right now that have been drawn up to say this is exactly how this area will be developed. The key part is to get the vision in place before what the community is really looking for, especially looking at the project, the town center it is now, but also the Hartford healthcare property and the development potential there is for the town while considering what the residents want to see on the site. So tonight I have with me Kimberly Baptiste and Bridget Snover from Colliers. They are the town's selected consultant to work with us through this project. I also have Eric Hinkley, my assistant planner, and I would like to hand it over to Kimberly Baptiste to talk about the project, and we'll start the night off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you everyone for coming out. I know it's kind of a dreary, dark, rainy evening, so appreciate you all leaving the comforts of your home to join us. As Paul mentioned, my name is Kimberly Baptiste. I'm with Colliers Engineering and Design, and we are working closely with the town and stakeholders to facilitate the master planning process. So as Paul mentioned, we're going to walk you through a brief presentation this evening to give you some context about the planning process, a little bit of background, and then really the important part, turn the meeting over to you and walk you through a visioning exercise where we hope many of you will stick around for so we can get some of your ideas and feedback to integrate into the process. So the discussion topics for this evening, as you can see on the screens, team introductions, quick project overview, talk about how we're going to be and how we have been engaging with the community to gather feedback to really help inform this process, walk you through the scope elements of what this project is, just so we are kind of clear at the beginning. And then, as I mentioned, walk you through that visioning exercise. So team introduction, so Colliers Engineering and Design, we are the primary firm. We are a planning, urban design, engineering, architecture firm, kind of a full suite design firm. So have a lot of different disciplines that will be pulling into this process as needed to really help inform the master planning. In addition, we have another team member, Coyne Associates, on our team. They are a national firm with a specialty in market and economic analysis. So they are in the process of developing a market analysis for the town and the region to help inform and understand what are some of the key economic and market trends and opportunities. So ultimately, we can make sure that any of the recommendations identified through this planning process are also based on economic and market reality as well. The steering committee, so just included this slide. If you are on the steering committee, and there are a number of you here, raise your hands. Okay, so thank you. I was going to say a big round of applause for our steering committee members. So a really important part of helping to guide this process, and they are volunteering their time over the next 6 to 8 months to really help us make sure that we are kind of following the vision of the community. They're reviewing materials, they're providing guidance, they're going to be helping us with community outreach and engagement. So very much appreciative of their time and energy as part of this effort. So project overview, kind of maybe answering the first initial question, right? Okay, I'm here for the Town Center Master Plan public meeting. What is a Town Center Master Plan? So the master plan really is intended to be a long range planning document, right? So we're not going to come in and say, this is exactly the development that's going to happen on this site, but we are providing the foundation based on, again, the market analysis, what we're hearing from the community, what we're hearing from stakeholders about opportunities within the town center area. It's really intended to be a guidebook for future decision-making by the town council, and other decision makers. The objective, the overarching objective of this project is to develop that plan, that long-term plan that articulates not only the vision, but also the strategy for achieving that vision. So the implementation strategy component of this plan is a really important aspect, looking at not just developable parcels, private land, but also public realm and public space improvements as well, with the ultimate goals of providing enhanced public spaces for community members, growing the local tax base and providing the different goods and services that are needed and desired by community members, supporting kind of that vibrant town center area that draws people into the town center, and continuing to support a wide range of different uses within the town center. So this is the study area that we're focused on. And I'm going to actually just skip right to the next slide because I think it's important to distinguish the fact that even though it is one study area that we'll be looking at in its entirety, the town center, we do recognize that there are two very distinct sub areas. So we've got the town center, which might be what you consider your traditional town center, right around Constitution Square, Market Square, Main Street, Lowry Place. But also included within our study area is the Hartford Healthcare Complex. With the departure of Hartford Health from that site, there's a new opportunity on the site to begin thinking about what the future of that site should and could be. So a lot of our engagement with the community will be helping to really think about the future of the Hartford Health site and how it may align with the community's vision. So engagement. So community engagement is a critical foundation of the planning process. Our intention, and we've been kind of undertaking a variety of community outreach initiatives over the past 3 to 4 months, is to make sure we are reaching a diversity of stakeholders, hearing from a diversity of perspectives, all of which will inform the planning process. So these are all of the different elements of what we call our engagement strategy. So all the different ways that we intend to have conversations, talk to community members, make sure we are getting that diversity of different ideas and perspectives to inform the plan. So we already introduced our steering committee. We are also having meetings with town representatives. So we will be meeting with the various town commissions to get their perspectives. We will be having targeted focus group meetings around specific topics. As one example, we met with representatives at the senior center this morning. So we got perspectives from that segment of the population. In addition, we're having a number of one-on-one stakeholder meetings with key property owners and stakeholders within our targeted study area. This is the first of 3 public workshops that we'll be having over the next 6 months. I'll talk more about those in a minute. We've had a number of pop-up engagement activities that I'll highlight also. And then we do have a project website. So that's kind of a nice 24/7 way to kind of get information and share information about the project. As part of that project website, we have had an online survey open for a number of months, and I'll give you some of the highlights of that in just a moment as well. So I did mention there will be 3 public workshops. Tonight's workshop is really around information sharing, so just making sure everyone is aware of this process and what it entails. But as we've discussed, really hearing from you and getting feedback on your vision for the future of the town center area. Public meeting number 2, which is the really fun meeting, will be a design charrette. So where we'll really have the chance to start thinking about future uses and enhancements and improvements within the town center area. We're currently thinking that will be late January or sometime in February. And then in the spring, we'll come back to the community and share the draft plan and recommendations, and you'll still have the opportunity to provide feedback on those before the plan is finalized. So pop-up engagement, as I mentioned, we've been kind of trying to touch different aspects of the community. So back in September, we had a pop-up booth at the Waterfall Festival. Anyone here run into any of our team members there? A few folks, great. And then just this past Friday, we were at the Night of Lights. Anyone at the Night of Lights? Same people, you go to all the pop-ups. So these are a great way to at least make sure we're getting the word out that this planning process is underway and to get informal feedback, right? So you didn't know you were going to run into us at the pop-up, but there we were. So we were able to kind of be able to touch base with community members, maybe in a way that they weren't expecting, or if they're not able to come out on a rainy Monday night to join us, it still gives us the chance to interact with them. So we do intend to have more pop-up engagement and these touch points as we move forward in the process. I mentioned we have a project website. There are postcards on the sign-in table, which does remind me, if you didn't sign in when you walked in, if you don't mind signing in before you leave, just so we have your contact information. The website, newingtontowncenter.com, so pretty straightforward. As we continue to move forward in the planning process and have deliverables, we'll continue to update and populate this website. In the short term, there's a link to the online survey. It'll close in about a week. But there's also a comment page. So if you leave this meeting and you're like, oh, darn, I wish I told Kimberly this when you're laying in bed tonight, you can log on to the website, type in your comment, and we'll get that comment directly in our inbox. Background information on the project and all future public engagement opportunities will be posted and listed on the project website. Speaking of that online survey, how many folks in the room have taken the online survey? Oh, a large majority. That's great. We have had a great, robust turnout with regards to the community survey. So as of a couple days ago, we had 587 responses. That number may have gone up over the weekend. But again, we are intending to close this phase of the survey in about a week. So if you haven't taken it, it only takes about 5 minutes. It's a pretty quick and easy survey to complete, but it shares with us, a really strong foundation of information and understanding of the community as we move forward. There will be additional surveys offered through the project website as we move forward in the process that kind of reflect whatever phase it is that we're in at that time. So we've done a bit of community engagement to date, the pop-ups, the survey, steering committee meeting. We've had a number of stakeholder meetings. Obviously, with all those responses, a lot of feedback from the community survey. Some of the key themes that we've heard thus far about the town center area, everyone is very happy with the amount of parking, which I said, usually I walk into a town and the first thing I hear about is there's not enough parking. So I was very pleasantly surprised. Everyone really sees the accessibility of parking and the volume of parking within the town center is a real asset. At the same time, love and appreciate the walkability that's afforded in the town center as well as the accessibility. Everyone loves all the restaurant options within the town center, but would love to see even more of them. We've certainly heard about what are perceived as some retail gaps within the town center. So folks would like to see more retail. In particular, we have heard quite a few times about the loss of the grocery store and the desire to have more food options in the town center. Specific to the Hartford Health site, the feedback we've gotten to date is folks do think that residential would be a good future use for the Hartford Health site. But at the same time, just want to be careful and think about the traffic impacts of additional development proximate to the town center. Northward Shopping Center was identified as a priority site. And just the kind of key underlying factor of you've got a really great established town center. So making sure whatever happens on the Hartford Health Care site complements that and doesn't compete with it. Okay, so jumping into scope of the actual planning process. So at a very high level, we kind of break down what we're doing into 5 distinct phases. So we're gathering a lot of existing conditions information. This is what we're hearing from you, community members, stakeholders, as well as kind of on the ground data collection as well, some of the technical analysis, the market analysis. Visioning, which is what we're doing here tonight. So really understanding what you see as kind of the ideal future for the town center area. And then we get into what I typically say is the really fun part, the design aspect. So really looking at master planning and development opportunities, but also those public realm improvements, streetscapes, connectivity, accessibility, walkability. An important part of the plan is not just to identify what that future vision is, but to really provide a framework for how do you achieve that vision. So the plan will include an implementation strategy, and then we bundle all of those pieces together to actually deliver the plan to the town. I'm not going to go into this list in great detail, but the existing conditions is pretty robust and thorough. So again, we're looking at a lot of different aspects about the physical characteristics of the town center and surrounding areas, right? Recognizing the town center does not exist in isolation in the town. And also, the market and economic conditions as well. So just a couple really quick snippets of some of the data we've gathered so far. So you can see this map is showing land ownership. So any parcels in blue are private. The green parcels are town of Newington, publicly owned parcels. This is important to just help us understand, right? So what are the parcels that the town can control? What happens in the future on those sites, right? Which are sometimes some of the lower hanging fruit. And then for the private parcels, it's really about thinking about if there's a different direction that is ultimately desired, what are the tools that may be put in place to help kind of steer in that direction? What are incentives or opportunities that could be applied? One of those outcomes might be looking at any needed modifications to zoning. So this is just again, a quick snapshot of the existing zoning. So we will take a close look at the zoning map after we get through the master planning process to see if there are any areas of kind of friction between what the community wants to see in the future and what the zoning allows today, which may result in recommendations for some minor zoning modifications in the future. Mentioned the market analysis that is underway by Camoin Associates. So again, they are looking at a wide variety of topics from a market perspective. So looking at general demographic trends, looking at housing opportunities, retail opportunities, hospitality, office, industrial. So really kind of taking a deep dive into a variety of market sectors to help us understand where are some of the greatest opportunities for future growth that may be successful here in the town center that then may align with the community's vision as well. So just kind of some quick snapshots from that market analysis. So looking at population in the town of Newington, you can see that from 2000 to 2029, there is some minor anticipated growth within the town. So 659 person change over that period. The town has kind of grown and then dipped and grown and dipped. So looking at another kind of growth trajectory over the next 5 years. These are the age characteristics. So I know a lot to absorb in a single slide, but the key takeaway here is that today, Newington has kind of an older population when compared to neighboring towns with fewer people under the age of 14. This is important as we start to think about attracting, population segments that we want to attract to the town to help grow and bolster the town. It also helps us to think about what types of uses or services or programming are needed to meet the needs of town residents today as we're thinking about the future of the town center. We also looked at income characteristics. So when comparing the town of Newington to like the larger region, the Hartford Metropolitan Statistical Area, which I know is a mouthful, but it's essentially a large area around the city of Hartford. The income levels in Newington are higher on average, which indicates there is greater spending power and possibly more disposable income or more income available to spend on housing, goods and services, entertainment opportunities. We also looked at home ownership rates. So home ownership in Newington is very high and vacancy rates are very low, indicating a very strong demand for housing within the town. This, again, I know is a lot to read on the screen, but what this chart is showing are new multifamily developments in the town over the past 20 plus years. So what's interesting is nothing was built in the town between 2000 and 2023, but then 420 units came on board in 2024. So there's been kind of an uptick in multifamily housing within the town, which is very likely responding to that demand and that very low vacancy rate within the community. So we also have spent, and Camoin Associates is spending a lot of time, right, recognizing that the town center is not the only commercial node or corridor within the larger town, and understanding the context of that compared to the other geographic nodes of commercial activity, right, and making sure we're not competing with one another, but providing the diversity of goods and services that are needed from the perspective of the town as a whole. So that's kind of just a quick snapshot of some of our initial findings from our existing conditions, but kind of going back to the flow of the different aspects of our scope. So as I said, the first phase is existing conditions. The second phase is really this community visioning phase. So ultimately, we want to take feedback that we're gathering from all of you and all of our other engagement activities to identify really an overarching vision statement that will help guide the master plan. That vision statement will be supported by a series of goals. Those goals will be supported by a series of specific strategies or actions. So everything that is identified through this planning process ultimately should roll up and help to achieve the vision that's been established. The land use master plan, again, is really the graphic representation of potential future vision for the town center. So whether, as I mentioned earlier, that's improvements to public spaces, streetscapes, but also looking at opportunities for development, revitalization, kind of rethinking some of your existing spaces and places. So we also recognize, and I hinted at this earlier, right? We do recognize that study area, although it looks like a very defined boundary on the map, does not exist in isolation, right? So many of the recommendations, the strategies, the actions that are identified within the master plan will be applicable to immediately surrounding areas as well. So thinking about, other commercial oriented developments adjacent to our study area, around our study area. A lot of the recommendations that come out of this will be applicable. And again, we won't be looking at the boundary in kind of complete isolation. We recognize that there is a relationship to the surrounding neighborhoods. So project schedule. So you might be asking, okay, this all sounds nice, but when will we actually see something? So we are intending to kind of wrap up the planning process, hopefully by the spring of 2025. So as you can see, over the past few months, we have been very busy with kind of that information gathering phase, which is kind of coming to a head here in December, and we'll be very quickly moving into that design phase early in the new year. So immediate next steps, as I mentioned, we've been meeting with stakeholders and we'll be continuing to meet with stakeholders. Our team this month is finalizing the draft existing conditions and market analysis that will first be shared with the town and the steering committee, and then will be posted once those have been reviewed to the project website for the community to have a chance to review and look at those documents. And then as we start moving forward and look to schedule that public design charrette early in the new year, we will really begin that design process. So I would just say we don't have a defined date yet for that public charrette in 2025, but please keep your eyes posted for announcements on the town site, on our project website, and we will make sure that we spread the word about that charrette once it gets scheduled. So with that, want to jump into the visioning exercise. Do we want to open it up for any questions or just jump in?
So yeah, we can open up.
Are there any initial questions that we can answer? Yes.
What's your expertise as tax projects?
So we've been, I can say our company has been doing this for 30 to 40 years. I've been kind of a consultant on the private sector side, working for municipalities across the Northeast and the Atlantic region for 20 plus years. So we've done master plans really across Pennsylvania, New York State, Connecticut. I've worked as far as Florida and Alaska as well on similar projects. So our team has a very robust, long resume of this type of work and the various elements that go into it. We can provide a list afterwards, yeah. Can point you to our company website as well, which has a lot of them. Yes,
Stanley Sobiech, Chairman of PPC, President. Newington was formed in 1871. Point out, it's part of Weathersfield, which is one of the oldest towns.
I've worked in Weathersfield. Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Hi. A little bit confused what sway the town look here using their plot. So if you could walk me through that or how that would, let's say, he came aboard, this thing from television side or use of that. How does that become reality?
The greatest influence that the town can have over future development on that site is modifications to the zoning code. And there will be potentially recommendations for changes to zoning that come out of this process.
The actual owner of that particular piece of seed. What that-
They would, if the town moved forward and changed the zoning code, they would have to comply with the future zoning code. Yes, in the back of the room.
They have to try or do they have to agree it's their problem?
They would have to comply with the zoning regulations. No, the zoning is law.
Well, real quick, right now it's zoned as public land. It's not
Correct.
any permission or whatever they want to change.
Under the current zoning, yes. Yep.
The history of town planning and zoning, to change the zoning to suit the application. And so you come up with a plan, zoning. And your plan is to future development, that's what we desire. And then the execution of that gets amended. Tweaked. And so the end result isn't exactly what the plan started out. Special exceptions, overlay zones. That
And I'm happy to let Paul speak, but I will say, I think one of the impetuses for why the town initiated this process was to make sure there was kind of a community-based input forum opportunities to help guide and inform any potential changes to zoning, but feel free to chime in, Paul.
Yeah, and that's when looking at, again, zone public land right now, it is restrictive on what it can be. And the question goes for community is, do you as a community take your vision, look at what you're going to do with the property, look at what you want on the property, and put in that law, put in that code that represents it. So instead of a developer coming in and saying, this is what I want point blank, make the code, they write the code just for what they're doing. This code signals to developers who are coming in, this is what the community wants. So you have the framework in place, you have what the community desires, you have that all kind of worked through the process. So when they come in, the community has spoken. It's one of those ones where if someone comes in, just as a developer, says, this is what I want, it's a fight back and forth, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to signal to the right type of developer who looks, okay, this is the product I want to build. That's when selling this property, they'll have the ability to reference this plan and any zoning recommendations that I work with TPZ on what goes forward to say, this is the proper development. This is what Newington wants. So if you want to build X, Y, and Z, and this is your bread and butter, that's not what the community is looking for. But if you do this type of development, we're open to it. We've gone through this process. There's community buy-in, so there's less risk. So this is a combination of, taking some of the risk away from the development by the community coming forward and saying, this is what we want. So that's kind of looking, there are two ways to do it, the way of the community acting first and figuring out what the community wants, or waiting for a developer to come in with just what they want and then having that back and forth fight on, what it could be. So that's kind of the gist of looking forward and why we're doing this study and why we're here tonight to hear from you.
Thank you. Yes.
increase the population, 2,000 to 3,000 residents. That was a question.
So that population growth, because of the source that data is coming from, which is Esri Business Analyst, which combines a variety of different sources, those projections would take into account those particular developments because they occurred in 2024. So, you know, they are adding residents, but they are making assumptions based on number of types of unit, how many people are living there. So, you know, there's kind of a mathematical, but it does take that into account. It doesn't take into account, right, what potential development could happen on the Hartford Health site, for example.
I sort of been-
And I think, you know, without looking at every specific point, when you're looking at population, as Kimberly was saying, there are a lot of factors that come into play. You know, you look into that, yes, that these are new households, there's new residences, but there's also the trend of household size that has been trending downwards. And that's actually what we've seen pretty much, I think, over the last decade, a bigger change in that. So while we do have these new units, a lot of our single family residential units have less people living in them than were before. Family size has declined. So you have those balancing elements of the new units, but you also have smaller household sizes, and you know, you have different ways that people are living together. So yeah, it's a balance between all of that. That's what it predicts.
I think it was 400. It's not 400. Is that what you're getting, 400? That full slide. Yeah, I was just referencing that they did.
Thank you.
And typically population schedules, they also take into account deaths.
Yep.
People moving, so yes, well, you may get this amount, you have people transitioning out of town or.
Couple more, yes.
They, well, if I understand what you're saying, the town does have the final say in choosing a developer that meets the needs of the plan.
So I would say the town doesn't have the final say in choosing the developer. The town has the final say in choosing what type of development can happen on the property. So it's a little bit of both, yeah. Yeah, and it's in public land, you know, and I would encourage people to look at it, and I can actually put it up on the project website too, so people understand what public land is. It's actually a very short section of our zoning regulations, and it really is for that governmental or private use that provides those type of functions. So how people could see themselves working into that, you could get potential outliers. But you know, the current use right now, or the past use as the children's hospital, definitely fit within that permitted type of use that was on the site. What any changes are, so right now on public land, if you wanted to build an apartment complex, you could not. If you wanted to build a retail store, you could not. It has to be, all those functions have to be associated with that larger entity. So if you had a hospital that had housing on it as part of it, yes, that's okay. But to just build a housing or to build a retail by itself, you would not be permitted to do that. So that's the biggest kind of hurdle with public land. But any changes to the zoning code would ultimately benefit a future property owner because it is looking at what uses the town wants to see there. And because it is a little more restrictive now, again, you can never promise and predict everything of who's going to come in with an idea of how it works under the zoning regulations and go through the process. But right now it's higher restricted than the zones around it. If it was zone town center right now, there would be a lot of different available opportunities for any future developer. But as public land, it is more constricted. So, you know, that back and forth about the property owner accepting it, it's going to be in the property owner's interest to have zoning that allows more uses, that allows a different type of development, but it's the community's interest to figure out what that development looks like and how it relates to the town center.
You're able to just mention, like the Harvard Healthcare campus was for sale, and then they knew that we were doing this study, so they took it off the market. And it's not like if they just wanted to take the biggest payday, they would have done that already. So I think some of us are just worried that it's just we're gonna do all this and then they're just gonna take whatever, but they probably would have already done that Are you able to just mention that?
Yeah, I would say,
They're working, like they're holding it
yeah,
so that we can do this and.
I'd say by their actions, yeah, by pulling it, there's also uncertainty when the town is going through this process too. It's uncertainty that's good uncertainty for the town. Because it's a developer going, I don't know what the town will accept here. Because again, a developer does not want to come into a town where every obstacle is put in their way. They will look elsewhere. But we also do not want one who wants to come in and just say, I'm going to do that anyway and try to, shove a project through. This will give that feedback to that developer, or it'll give what the community is looking for. Again, as I said, to have that right developer come to the table, the one who understands, hey, this is what I do. I develop stuff like this. The community wants it, and I know my barriers to entry will be lower. It's that risk because it's very expensive to actually go through this process and have your plans drafted, hire engineers, architects, surveyors. There is a large outlay that comes in for a developer when they go to do a project. If they know that the community is interested in what they're going to do, then it's enticing for them to come in.
Yes.
So I understand there's a whole lot of moving parts and different things and nothing's predictable, all that good stuff. How many years off though would something like this be if everything went well?
Let's say, so as far as rewriting zoning, can take anywhere from 2 to 8 months, depending on who initiates the process and how much public feedback there is. Development plans take a few months to get through the development process. Again, if it's something that the zoning kind of encourages it, it's faster to go through the process. If the zoning is very onerous, it takes a long time to go through the process. You build it out, that takes a couple of years. So anything you do in the land use realm is not an immediate. It is planning for the future. That's why it's not just reacting to what someone comes in and gives us a plan for. Again, there is this process we do have to go through. It's hard to put an exact time on it, but to understand, every step has this process that could be a couple months. And the biggest actually end is when you get a developer who comes in to do those plans. It takes them time to do those plans. They'll be able to use the information that the town has come up with through this process to help their plans. They'll make them execute them faster, knowing what they're, knowing what the market segment in, knowing what works in there, what the town has done, what our investment is in this property, will ultimately help shorten that cycle to go through the process, but get something that we're looking for out of it. So again, it's not a pure answer. I know I can't say, it'll take 1 year, 2 years, but it is how that process goes. But I think the most important part of that process is identifying those barriers to entry, what the town is willing to accept in the area, what our desire is, and making that easier than the alternative.
Robert King, 32 Walnut. Just wondering, has anyone from the team or the town been in contact with the shopping center? Are they trying to develop that further? That's it.
We're attempting to reach out.
Oh, okay. I know it's, yeah. I use the gym there, because I have a little background. They seem to be hard to get a hold of.
Yep, and we've worked with them through the process. Again, with the recent pickleball, they got approval for. They were only asking for approval for a seasonal type of use. If it goes well, they may establish there. But through that process, we worked with the owner, got some areas repaved, got some catch basins fixed. We worked with them earlier when they were first coming to us. When they did come in with a pre-application, they had an idea for apartments on the building. Should say apartments on the site. But that went through the TPZ, they got feedback and they said maybe not go that direction right now. But they are interested in doing something with the property. I know that because they've come forward, but right now, as I said, we're going to work with them. We'll drag them in for a meeting and talk with them and see what their thoughts are. But ultimately, I think it is that private ownership that you have. But what would incentivize that being worked on? What could incentivize that being redeveloped is going to be the question. Is it zoning they're looking for? Is it density? It's a lot about density. It's a lot about how things are oriented. It's about what the streetscape will look like for us, for the town's concerned. For them, ultimately, it's going to be what pencils out. And then you have that back and forth between it. So yes, I have this, I've talked with them myself. But yeah, we will be folding them in to this conversation.
I know there was a lady with her hand in the back.
Lines, just as someone who would watch these meetings, not this particular meeting, but these meetings that are being recorded, thank you to NCTV for doing it. It's very hard to hear what people are asking, and you're always picture maybe have like for someone, because you're giving answers to questions that even me sitting here, I can hear just parts of the question. And I think it's important because there's a lot of people, if you go to the Facebook pages, and I know the town doesn't like doing it, but rather than come to a town website, they're going to Facebook and asking questions because we can't find what we want on the town website. And now you're wanting to put something out there, and we're not going to hear the answers, but we're not going to. As someone who has followed Cedar Mountain back when they wanted to develop, I don't even know if it's renamed yet or not. We went through a lot of things with zoning, there was big fights over this. The goal is the goal of the town to figure out what we want. Establish a zoning. That we go forward. Want to come in and do what we want to do. Is the public land. Public land. Maybe housing or. We can't keep it the way it is. And actually, so first I thought, here, then I saw we were getting consultants, fee up for consultants, then Harvard Healthcare pulled sale, so.
Thank you for that. And thank you for, I think that's a good point. We will repeat the questions from now on before answering them. And with regards, I don't know if you want to cover the public use, but there was also the follow-up question about could we possibly put something on the Hartford Healthcare site that falls within the existing public use zoning that's maybe different than it is today. And that's something that will be evaluated and considered as part of this process.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, so that's why this is, as part of the planning process, bringing in Colliers, but also having them having Camoin as part of it for that economic aspects of it. So, you know, as a planner, we could say, and as a town, we could say, we want this use, but that might not be profitable. But that's the point of looking at this process of having Camoin there too, of the town wants this use. Once we get to that level of understanding the uses, ground truthing it, figuring out, is this actually feasible? That's an important thing, is if we're going to put a zoning code into effect, it should be something that's feasible. Otherwise, it's an academic exercise. It needs to be something that can actually generate a profit for a developer to build. Otherwise, they will not build it. So again, while looking at it, I think that's a key point. And looking at, you know, the changes from the public land and not, and that is good to look at what could go on the public land. The key thing is it really doesn't allow, it has like a single user when you really look at it. It's a single user type of property, one organization that builds out kind of a campus is how it was looked at. Public land is a little, I would say, awkward the way that it's named. Because when you think public land, you think open space, green space. That's not the public land zone. The public land zone is hospitals, it's the VA, it's those larger institutional uses is how the public land really was looked at for zoning.
And we'll just take one or two more questions so we leave time for our visioning. Yes.
What's the current status of the key manufacturer? There's a sign that says coming soon, and I think that's been there for quite a while. What, is that been sold? Is it still up for sale? What's the vision for that building?
So the question was, what is the current status of the Keeney manufacturing building? So based on, I think what we know, right, there's about 40,000 square feet of that building being used today in the kind of the loading dock portion along Lowry Place. There still is a desire and a vision to build out the rest of that building by the property owner. pending kind of the market conditions coming together and additional interest being shown for build out of retail and maybe some, different types of maker space and user spaces within the building.
So I guess I'll add to that, it is still under the ownership of when they came in, I think it's the Stillman Development Group. When they came in and kind of presented to the town, still under the same ownership. They have not sold it. They have not indicated any plans that they are wanting to sell it. It's just figuring out the uses and the way it's going to be built out. They have the classic chicken and egg problem of, do you build it and then have uses come in? Do uses come in and then you build it to suit? And they haven't quite worked that all out yet, but they have been directly contacted as part of this project too, and we'll be working with them. And again, recommendations from this study could help them as well and move that along and get it to somewhere where we are seeing activity in the building.
Okay, so looks like final question.
Thanks, Craig. This comes before we will bring a lot of people, activity. One of the projects, one of the buildings that's there that's right now, like most of the people come to the post office. Now, has anybody been going to be in touch with them to improve that property, make it bigger? It's certainly going to have to take out more work than it is now. There's a lot of things that you're not able to look at as well, so that's something.
I mean, thank you for, so the question was, is there going to be a specific focus on the post office property? That has not come up yet as an important aspect for consideration, but thank you for elevating it to our attention. Okay, so now we're going to have some fun. You're going to have the chance to stand up and stretch your legs a little bit. So we're going to walk you through a visioning exercise. So it's called In a Word. So that's the hard part. Bridget's going to start handing out giant Post-its. Let me give a little chunk to everyone. And some fun smelly markers, but don't smell them too close because then you'll get marker on your nose. It's happened to me once or twice before. We're going to walk you through a series. We're going to walk you through a series of questions, and you're going to be asked to answer the question in a single word, which is the challenging part. Once you have written your word on the Post-it, if you feel like you want to get up and stretch your legs, we're going to ask you to go place the Post-it on the wall. You can see the green sample Post-it over there, the blank one. If you don't want to get up and you don't want to stretch your legs, just raise your hand and one of our team members will come over and grab your Post-it from you. So once we have all the Post-its on the wall, we'll open it up and we'll have some fun discussion afterwards. A couple things I just want to say as we start to kind of discuss some of the words, you can give them more than 3. Like you can give big chunks to people.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we start to have discussions and folks express their ideas and their opinions, I just want to make sure that we are all keeping in mind, there's no such thing as a bad idea. So please be respectful of everyone else's ideas and opinions, even if they don't perfectly align with maybe your ideas or opinions. Okay, so the first question, so you have multiple Post-its. You're only going to use one at a time. So on your first Post-it, in a word, how would you describe the town center study area today? Remember, just one word, no cheating, no hyphenation to make 2 words, 1 word. People get very creative doing this, but 1 word, describe the town center as you see it today. Again, if you don't want to get up, just raise your hand. If you want to get up, go throw your, just one Post-it, 1 word.
Yeah, wait a second. Yeah,
Okay,
Coming out of the gas.
Shelton. Wait.
Not bad. Look, it's coming home from the Christmas break. Are you trying to reverse?
Okay, so then you just have to give the planner 30 seconds to do a very technical exercise called clumping. Slow. There's always a good couple ones that I like to empty. Okay, let's start with a fun one. Help. Who wrote help? Okay. You wrote help? All right, so now can you share why you wrote the word help?
It needs some help, period.
Give us some examples.
Northwoods,
Okay,
that's an area that needs some help. Walkability is pretty good, but we need more grass also,
okay, more green.
more green,
Okay,
more green.
so the explanation for help kind of aligns with, maybe some of these other terms, underutilized, outdated, tired, dull, sleepy. Anyone that wrote any of these words want to share more context on why they picked that word? And don't be shy.
I wrote outdated. I just feel like there's nothing in downtown for me.
Okay,
There's nowhere for me to go and do something.
okay. Okay, so not enough kind of destinations or attractions. Okay. So another word I like and interested to hear the context, slow. Who wrote slow? Tell us more.
Well, in my opinion, the thing that you need the most for the town center is a reason for them to stay. You need some reason. Think about like West Hartford Center, Blueback Square. People could spend a whole day there. They could go from place to place. They could go shopping. They can, get an ice cream. There's things to do. There's cultural things and everything. I feel like we kind of just, I don't know, we're like, we're just sleepwalking through our town. There's nothing there right now.
Dovetail with your feedback as well. Okay, then there were a couple, kind of positive connotation words. cozy, quaint. Who wrote either of those and want to share why they selected?
So I said cozy because I kind of like it's a nice area. I like walking around there. I like the trees along the road. I'm not scared to walk along it. Like Main Street, you walk along Main Street, cars go flying by. You're able to just walk around there. Could stand to have more reason for me to stay there, but it's got good bones.
Great. And how about who wrote quaint? Is that similar?
A little different. I like the fact that it's not multi-story. It's an old New England town. The highest building is a, church in the center of town. It could use, a bit of updating, but I like the fact that it's still, remind you of small New England. There's different architectures, different, small vendors, walkable. You can still see the mountain. Again, I'm worried about, 6, 7, 8-story buildings. It is walkable and it's a hometown feel with the type of businesses that we have.
Thank you. And then also sticking with kind of our positive terms, someone wrote potential. Do you want to share more about why you picked that word?
What it can be is that cross between New England and Blue Black Square, and it can be that. Let's think the problem through.
Okay, then there's another group here, lacking, vacant, empty, that I think kind of correlates with some of the feedback we heard, but does anyone want to share more about why they chose their words? Yes, you're making me walk back and forth.
Chose vacant.
Okay.
Because there's not many people down there. And reference was just made to Blueback Square. And so Blueback Square is loaded with people and they can come down from their residence and walk around. In Newington, we don't have that. We have Lowry, Northwood Apartments, and that's where there's an older population. And the result of no people is closed businesses, like on Rowley Place, excuse me, and in Keeney, they want to have a commercial activity. It's just not going to happen. Once somebody gets in their car to go somewhere, they can go anywhere. And so the mall is just, but from the center of Newington, probably 5 miles. And so if you have to drive to the center to do things, you've got a lot of options. And more than likely, the center won't be your choice. But if you live there, then you walk out of there and the center is where you are, and that's where you're going to do your business.
Thank you. And one last, disjointed. Who wrote disjointed? You want to share more?
I think that's why we're here. You just look at the map and the way it's highlighted, you could tell it's very disjointed. The problem is the Keeney manufacturing site and then the absentee owner of Northwoods. We just really need to figure out a way to make like a beautiful walking route around town. Like, what if we had beautiful landscaping all throughout the town center that presented as a cohesive unit, and also the signage. We really need to look at, I mean, I'm willing to do this. We really need to look at our zoning regulations as far as signage, because that's one of the biggest impacts you could have in a town on how it looks and how it feels. So I encourage all of you, next time you drive around, look at all the different styles of signs. And even if we just had one style of sign, that would bring a lot of cohesion to the center. And you know, we don't have much power, but signage is one of them. And I would heavily recommend develop a theme and stick with it.
Thank you. Okay, so great feedback. Appreciate all of your participation. We're going to move on to our second word or second question. You get a second word, but still only one word. In a word, and some of this came out in some of your backup statements, but in a word, what is the greatest issue or challenge that you see in the town center today? Is it signage? Is it? Okay, you need your Post-its.
Take one down, pass it around. There you go.
One more. See?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Ooh, good one. Oh, way more than one word here.
They said.
Well,
I never got the rules.
That makes sense.
Okay. We've got some nice, interesting words to explore. Oh, it's still coming. Do we have everyone? Okay. Protectionism. Okay, look, I'm starting right where I ended. Tell us why you chose that word.
I foresee there will be issues with business owners on the Berlin Turnpike, possibly having concerns over how we redo our zoning for the center of town to compete with them. So I think one of the biggest issues is going to be competing businesses, and then also the issue of apartments, I think, is always a big one where current homeowners don't necessarily want to see more apartments.
Okay. Anchorless.
I just think one of the challenges is that, you know, it's a chicken and egg. We sort of need an anchor entity, whether it's a grocery store. I mean, it could be a lot of different things. I don't know. I mean, but that's sort of what seems to be the thing that's not attracting, that we're missing, that's not attracting other things.
The single big destination. Okay, great. So vacancies, I know someone said vacancies. Anyone who wrote vacancy? You said it. Self-explanatory, but do you want to add anything?
I think that the key for us in our community is utilizing the space that's already existing, and we're not. I think we have a tremendous opportunity with the vacant spaces that we can repopulate rather than necessarily rebuilding the wheel, use what we have.
Okay, great. So housing. So a few people,
On vacancy,
yes.
if Katie and Lowry are holding us hostage with over 8% of our downtown being abandoned, what opportunity, what do we have the ability to do to change that? They're holding us hostage. They don't want to move. They're getting enough money to satisfy what they're doing or it meets their financial needs. So they sit on it and we have a vacant downtown.
I think there's opportunities through other improvements, enhancements, incentives, right, that can help position them to want to further invest in properties.
So we've been here and they haven't done anything. You're coming in and you're very hopeful, but I don't know if you're gonna be able to budget.
Okay, well, we'll continue to hold on to hope. Housing. So we said, what is the greatest issue? Is it a lack of housing, or what is the thought with the folks that wrote housing?
Well, I didn't write housing, but a big complaint we have in town is we need more senior housing, ranch style housing, ownership housing, not more apartments, people who are investing in the town, paying town taxes, contributing to that. So more ranch style housing, elderly housing, and affordable in the sense of not $750,000 mansions, but mainstream homes. I'm sorry, whoever I stepped on.
Okay, who did write housing and wants to share why they wrote housing?
Well, I think the TPZ had the opportunity to consider the Northwood Plaza for additional housing. And for whatever reason, that was withdrawn. That would have been a wonderful addition to the downtown area. My comment as far as the Keeney property, I think it's zoned planned development planning or planned development right now. I think that should be investigated to see if maybe we could just, I don't think it's can be repurposed. I think it needs to be raised and maybe a nice apartment building built in there. Or if you want to go commercial, then some other commercial property, but the loading docks, it's not a Newington Center is not a manufacturing center any longer. And then as far as the Hartford Hospital property, I would like to see at least retirement community, a retirement community, maybe with some other, not the $750,000 houses, but some mixed housing. But we definitely need an over 55 community property built in there too.
So issue being lack of housing. Anyone else want to, you wrote housing too?
I wasn't going to say anything, but housing, I think the center has an opportunity to be a village. And a village, the way I see it, is several apartments, senior especially, affordable especially. We don't need $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000 rents. We need people who can afford to be in a space who will come down from their apartment and get the coffee, get the dinner, buy the set of clothes or whatever. That's what a small village is like. That would be what I would envision for the center, not just folks to come in from their single family home to drive to get their nails done or their hair done or their nails done or their nails done or their nails done.
Point taken. And you wrote housing as well? You want to weigh in on housing? Seems to be an exciting topic.
So one thing that a lot of people are talking about is apartments versus single family homes, but there's an opportunity to go dense while also having ownership. You could put in townhomes, row homes, things like that. A little bit of density around the town center would encourage people to walk to the town center. And the more people that are able to walk to this town center, the more walkable it'll feel, the better it'll feel with more people there. And so there is a nice middle ground between dense apartments and single family homes. We don't have to choose one or the other.
Thank you. Okay, so next, duplication and duplicity. So who wrote either of these terms? And is this having to do with the nail salons? Okay. Okay, so we'll understood. Connectivity.
Yeah, I wrote connectivity. I was going to connect it to housing because currently the only way to get downtown is to either walk from a fairly close single family or take a bus or drive. For numerous reasons, historical, current, not many people ride the bus. We know that's probably not going to pull in people in the immediate future. It's not connected to the town without having to drive there. Driving brings cars, cars brings parking lots are empty space.
Great.
I came here specifically for just housing. That's why I came. So I almost think that you.
Why you came to the town? To this meeting?
Yes. Was housing. I was just saying, the only reason why I really came tonight was for the issue of housing, that I would like more housing, ownership housing specifically. So I was just mentioning that it does seem to be a very hot topic that maybe a little more attention could go towards that specific issue.
And it definitely will as we move forward and get into kind of land use planning. And so definitely be on the lookout for our next meeting. Let's see. Option lists, I'm guessing kind of ties into retail, maybe an issue, not enough options within the town center. Okay, let's see what else. We've got retail, restaurants. Is that from an issue perspective, is that a lack of retail and restaurants? Yes, okay. Traffic, who wrote traffic? Tell us more.
Well, I live in one of those surrounding neighborhoods, so we get from the existing town center, and it's probably not the town center, it's just the fact that one of your borders of the study area is a major highway. It's like I-84 going right through the center of town. And that's where, you're looking at developing. So if we're talking about bringing more cars in, that's going to be even more of an issue. I encourage you sometime between 4 and 6 o'clock at night, your whole team to sit at the center of, was it Lowry, Cedar and Constance Lee. All of you should, you really should. And again, it's an issue now that's got to be resolved before you can bring in the best development. But if people can't get there because of traffic and people who walk, I walk and it's dangerous. So, and then the cut through traffic and the surround Holly Street and Connecticut Avenue, Buck, Edmond, Ellsworth, it's bad now. So I see it as an issue.
Thank you. And the last word I want to call out for this question, maybe it has to do with traffic safety. I wish I wore my smartwatch so I could log my steps.
It was the same as she was saying, but like I have 2 kids that bring, and I don't feel safe walking around there, like especially around Carvel. Like that little area there, I could see like a retaining wall be put in a little green area, so that way there's no parking or parallel parking, keep that area safe. And then walking in Cedar Street, I forget it. We don't want to go on that side of the street for anything else. And even just crossing the street for Newington Pizza and getting pizza and stuff, it's just people use that cutoff and it's a race way to get through. Again, I don't want to walk around doing that kind of thing. So I'm always, actively looking where they're going. It just doesn't seem safe enough for that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. So certainly traffic calming. Okay, so your third Post-its. So I'm going to actually, because I feel like maybe we covered that in some of our discussions. I'm going to hop to this question. You can pick one project to implement, just one. There's no limitations to resources. There's no financial limitations. But if you could change one thing in the town center, so again, that's the entire area, and implement one project, do one project, what would it be that you think would have the greatest impact on the town center? Okay.
Walk around. Focus on that.
Okay, thank you.
You know something that.
Oh, sorry. Is it one word?
It is technically.
So with the and that's like,
Very specific.
Cool. I mean, it's yeah.
Perfect timing.
How's it?
All right, do we have everyone that wants to add a thought? Okay, so we definitely have one theme around food access. So we have grocery store, marketplace. Who wrote marketplace? Were you thinking grocery store or a slightly different vision?
I was thinking more of what the Keeney building wanted to do, in terms of like mixed use, maybe a brewery, maybe little restaurant shops, a little pavilion, but kind of on a larger scale. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, great. And then someone wrote food court. Who wants to share kind of what your thought was specific to that?
Same thing like Faneuil Hall and Boston Commons, that kind of thing, where it's, you got your food, you got your little artisans, that kind of deal. But then either you can have the back end with the manufacturer, you could have your Trader Joe's or something like that style to bring that food in, and then have your walkability, and you have your little spots to eat, like your little food truck area, that kind of deal. And then maybe a community area where they're playing, I don't know, beanbag toss in there, that kind of stuff,
Thank you. And, number of the Post-it say grocery store. It's certainly a theme we've heard in some of our other engagement. Does anyone who wrote grocery store want to share more with the group?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a strong community desire for a grocery store in that place. There's been one there for a long time. I'd like to see like a small, even like a co-op where you can go and get, your bag of groceries for the next couple of days, something like that. That would encourage more walkability for residents in the area.
Okay, thank you. So, did you?
I have a question around the grocery store. So because there has been one there previously, and I think a handful of iterations have closed, I'm wondering if the market analysis is going to look into maybe the reasons behind it. Perhaps the town likes the idea of,
Family situation.
but multiple businesses over time. Is the town actually able to support something of that size, or is a different option?
It will be looked at as part of what they do in the market analysis is what they call leakage analysis. So kind of understanding proximity of different types of retail, how much the local community can support of that retail, and whether the market's saturated or not. So that will be something that comes out of the market analysis. So we talked about the Keeney building a few times this evening, but a few people did say, if this was the one project that we were to do, this would have the greatest impact on the town center. Who wants to share why they picked Keeney and maybe what their vision idea is for that?
I picked actually I wrote convention center because I firmly believe that back warehouse would make a great draw and would substitute for our children's theater and other venues. We don't have a large enough public facility in downtown, but it would draw from outside of our community. It would draw business into the downtown area and give us greater exposure.
Okay. So I'm gonna move your Post-it to clump it. Who else wrote Keeney and wants to share maybe what their vision is for?
I wrote Keeney because I always think about there's like a big building in Southington that has like a game like barcade and another brewery and nail salons and a whole bunch of other like a coffee shop. So I just envisioned that building could house a multitude of different businesses and would just be a draw for people to come.
So back to that.
Brewery, I just said that.
Yeah,
Okay, community pavilion. Who wrote community pavilion? Tell us what you're thinking.
Sure. For a lot of the same reasons that a lot of folks have brought up, but beyond that, having a space that has no ancillary use to it. You're not there to buy something. You're not there to shop. You're not there to, go to a restaurant. You're there to just have a community space, a maker space, a third space, whether it's an outdoor pavilion of some kind. I went to school over at UConn Stores, and they have a beautiful model for what this looks like with their recently developed kind of community center over there. But there's a lot of great opportunities to give a sense of place and give this kind of transientness to a center area that doesn't look forced, but that looks quite natural and that kind of invites people to make the most of their own space. So.
Thank you.
I got a question about what kind of environmental impact that property holds to the county? Because that was used for manufacturing last month year.
Okay.
So is there any information developed about the environment?
So the question was, has there been any study of any potential environmental considerations at the Keeney building? And Paul, I don't know if I know there was some remediation done by the previous property owner before the current property owners, but I don't know if, Paul, you have any detail on that?
So the Keeney did start before my time, so I don't have too much information deep on that one, but I was talking to Eric. And, according to that, they have done remediation on site. We don't know if there's specific studies. Again, that is something that should be looked into for the evolution of that site. But yes, they have done some remediation on site. I've been in the property in the basement where they had the old tanks. Previously, those have all been removed. As we know, on top of the plastic plumbing, it was used to, chrome plate fixtures as well. So that has been removed from the site. I think.
So you can go to the Connecticut file group online, and they have all the reports. I don't remember exactly what it said, but they have all the studies.
Where is this?
Connecticut Deep online. I can give me your number. Sure.
It's the State Environmental Agency.
Yes.
Okay, so then someone wrote the word density is having the greatest impact on downtown. So kind of the same theme you've been talking about.
So you could put that under housing, yeah. So similarly, if I think one of the big problems with the town center is that it was put pretty well that if you're going to get in your car, you can drive anywhere. We live right next to the Berlin Turnpike. Why would you go to a grocery store downtown that's probably more expensive when you could just pop over to Walmart or Target or wherever? And I think that the most impact we can have on the town center is to put some dense housing around the center, and that'll encourage people to go home, and instead of driving to Stop and Shop, you could just walk and get your dinner for the next couple of nights.
Thank you.
One of the just, I didn't write it, but you discussed about it, having that place, that community place. It's a silly idea that'll never happen, but I thought sort of a piece of the Hartford healthcare property being like a central park. And then building around it.
Okay.
That's what I thought. So that was good.
Okay, no, thank you for adding that. And there was actually another posted about the Hartford Health property. Lots of words, but break up Hartford Health property. Who?
I think what a lot of people like about the center is its diversity of businesses and lack of major big box retail. And my concern is that because the Hartford healthcare property is so large, that a developer is going to be risk averse and only try to target well-established national businesses. They're not going to take the chance on smaller local startups, people trying to start a business, people with one store looking to expand to a second. They're going to be risk averse and only want people who present a really good business plan and can meet their projections.
Thank you. And there's another term over there, walk the talk. Who wrote walk the talk? Tell us why this is the greatest opportunity in the town center, or the greatest project. Most
Well,
important one.
improvement or implement one, no matter what we do. I mean, I keep hearing people say, oh, we need a card store, we need a grocery store, we need a clothing store, we need a flower shop, we need a jewelry store. But when they come, when a business owner takes a chance, opens one up, nobody goes. People might come, once or twice, but they sit behind the computer and they order everything online. And so my concern is that we can do, everybody talks about this great little retail center and these little shops and these, whatever, but are you gonna support it? And that's where my problem is. And that's where my concern is. So the improvement would be people walk the talk. If you want a grocery store, if you want a card store, if you want restaurants, if you want flower shops, support them, because I've seen too many go out of business because nobody goes there.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure.
I think this is so fundamental. And we've heard it a bit tonight. I think you're completely right. I mean, it's self-evident. We've had so many businesses come in and out. I say for my own part, and maybe we all feel this way, the most heart-wrenching was Best Market, to come in and have such splashy success and then be gone in a couple of years. It was painful. And at the same time, I think a lot of folks have gotten to this, is that in a town like ours, options are numerous. And, as much as I want to shame people to go to your small businesses and go to Small Business Saturday, not, Cyber Monday, if the options are bountiful and we don't have this long-term plan that gives that place a sense of place, then they really have no choice. I mean, they're going to go to West Hartford. They're going to stay behind their computer on Amazon. So I think this is it's kind of apples and oranges. After a world in which a plan like this is implemented, I think a lot of that changes because there is that sense of place.
Thank you. You sure can.
I think we also need to attract small businesses and small business owners that are going to get involved in the community. And yes, everything both of you said are absolutely right. But on the other side of it, we do need small business owners that are going to be a part of the community. They can't just sit in their location and expect people to walk in either. We have to give them something to go do and something. If people are looking for an experience, they want to come and get a cup of coffee and stay and hang for a minute and then walk next door. Like it's the same theme that we've been saying all night. We need to give them a whole downtown experience.
It's like the 1,000 to 3,000 square foot places. There's when Keeney was we had interest in Keeney when they first kind of came around, and they wanted. But their initial focus was like 9,000 square feet. That's kind of what they were looking at for a retail size. Well, there is such, we've looked all over Newington and there is no like 800 to 3,000 square foot space. There's a ton of office, but there's no real good retail of that size that would be ideal for the single or two person business owner. And if we could focus a lot of that in this downtown area, I don't want it to become Blueback Square, but it will be like a smaller version that would be a lot more quaint and comfortable, walkable, and all of that stuff. Because everybody loves Blueback Square, but when you go there, you can't park, and there's too many people. And can we have something smaller that works for Newington?
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I know we had said the meeting was going to run till 8. Maybe if we just don't use Post-its and just have a little bit of discussion. And we've kind of alluded to this, so this may go quickly, but did want to just specifically ask a question about the Hartford Healthcare site. If you were in charge, you were gifted the Hartford Healthcare site tomorrow, you got to pick what happens on the Hartford Healthcare site. What would that look like in your?
The land as well around it.
It includes everything in this greenish color.
And all the land around.
Yep. Yep.
The reason why a supermarket doesn't work at Market Square is because the square footage doesn't allow for a large enough place to be competitive against the Berlin Turnpike or the Super Stop and Shop Fenton Road. Use the Hartford Healthcare site to build a large supermarket, which can compete price-wise with those other two places, draws the people there without increasing the traffic. The traffic's already there. So they're just taking a detour, they're gonna be getting their food and then take it off. For those of us that happen to live in the center of town, we get to walk and get our groceries, works for us. From there, everything else builds out. You've already got the people coming in for groceries. Now they can stop for X, Y, and Z afterwards.
Who else would like to be a developer?
Mixed use, residential, commercial, public space. I think that has been brought up many times. If people are there, they will use the businesses that are there.
I agree.
You agree? Okay. Any other developers? Lots of agreement. Mixed use.
We were discussing, would love to see 2 families or 3 families, because we need people to buy homes and be able to afford them in this economy, and they could have tenants. And so well-designed 2-family homes, 3-family homes.
Thank you. There was one in the back, then I'll come back up here.
Yeah, very similar to the mixed use. I think where a lot of other places in the country are doing well and not so much here. And actually, if you look at the Berlin Turnpike, I think where the Pike is and the complex where Sally's is going is kind of a little bit of a landmark. Obviously, they have a ton of parking, but something like that where you have your housing that can be the foothold that will support those businesses consistently, given the opportunity for people to come in. And the only thing I would add is some sort of community element to that, whether that's a park, playground, something where other people can just hang out in addition to the retail and housing space.
Great, thank you.
I don't really have any opinion on, retail housing, whatever, but whatever's built there, keep some open space, please. It's the gateway to Cedar Mountain, which is our, one of the few treasured landmarks we have in Newington. If there's a housing development, whatever there, please don't make the trails or the dog parks or whatever just accessible to those in the development. We need to keep some element of open space there as a park for all residents.
Thank you. Any others? We've got one more over here. 2 words, perfect.
Affordable housing.
Thank you. I'm going to do, and then, yeah, I'm going to save myself those steps.
10,000.
A far reach would be we're in the center of the state. So an indoor soccer facility or multi-use children, youth, all ages, even for just sports. Thank you.
Okay. That's perfect. I got that.
Sorry to say when you were over there. So I was trying to be funny. I put the same exact word up on the wall. Dense housing, I think, is our ideal there. Something that you can own, not apartments, but like I said, townhomes, row homes, something that is dense, gives you a nice small yard. My front yard is too big. And yeah, the more people we have there, the more people will stay local, especially if they can walk or bike to the town center.
Great. Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay. Oh, one more in the back here. And thank you for sticking around past 8 o'clock.
This is being selfish on my part, but it's not going to happen for me. I'm 79 in the house that I grew up in and have looked and looked and looked around Newington to try and stay in the community. But it's either the high end or the lower end. And I'd like some kind of when you say affordable, there's all kinds of affordable housing. And, the definition to some is not the same definition to others. I'd love to get out of my small cape that my parents raised 4 kids in and not take care of it myself, but it's paid for. I pay the taxes. I can get by on $37,000 a year, which not many people can say, but I'd love to get out and sell it to a younger couple as a starter home or whatever. This is what's happening on my street. And the houses on my street, one comparable to mine, went for $375,000, and it's a small brick cape. So The market for these houses is there. It's just that you have to find some place for the older people to go and make it affordable for them.
Thank
And
you.
keep them out as much as you
And keep them out.
can. The green space.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you everyone again for sticking around a few minutes past 8 and for all of your ideas and feedback. Again, this will be taken into account and directly influence the identification of our vision statement, our goals, and then ultimately as we move forward with our master planning. So thank you again. Appreciate all of you and see you next time.